You're watching Fox 9 All Day.
Well, hi there, everyone, and welcome to All Day Live. I'm Tim Blotz, in for Amy Hockert, who's enjoying some well-deserved time off this week. So we're going to have a lot of fun. We've got a lot going on here in the next 2 hours. But first, we want to take you out to the University of Minnesota, where we've got the new men's basketball coach. His name is Niko Medved, and he's going to be introduced here today. Now, just to give you a little background here, Medved is a former student manager and assistant with the Gophers. So this is not new territory for him. But he comes over from Colorado State, where he's recently led that program to the NCAA tournament, and he's done it a couple of times here in the last year. You're getting a live look now at some of the video coming in from the practice court at the Athletes Village. Yeah, they're giving the old chant there. Go Minnesota, right? Hey. Right. He's got it down. He's never forgotten it. He's going to be introduced by Athletic Director Mark Coyle here in just a moment or two. If we can, let's. Are they going to get going right away, Ryan? What do you think here?
I think they're going to get it underway here pretty quickly. You see Athletics Director Mark Coyle there. That's Paul Rovnak, the information director there for the Gophers. So let's just listen in here.
I think so. Let's let you listen in. And just to let our viewers know what we're going to do here is we're going to take this full and we're going to let it ride. So we want to let you see and experience all of this, because this is a huge moment in the Gophers athletic program and the basketball program. So let's listen in and take the news conference in its entirety.
I'd like to welcome Director of Athletics Mark Coyle to the stage. Thank you, Paul. Good morning to everybody. I appreciate everybody coming out on such short notice, but what an exciting day for Gopher Athletics. I want to take a second and recognize President Cunningham. She got here back in July, and she's been absolutely awesome, has been so supportive of this process and of our athletic department, our student athletes. So President Cunningham, thank you for your support. Our board leadership, obviously when you make changes like this with a significant program, it requires a lot of people to be on board with us. And our board leadership have been phenomenal with our student athletes, so we're grateful for that. I also want to thank our men's basketball student athletes. I see some of you scattered about. I know anytime you go through a coaching transition, it creates anxiety, the unknown. I appreciate how all of you represented our basketball program. The way you've handled yourself has been first class, and I truly appreciate that. And I promise you're going to absolutely love playing for Coach Medved when he gets started here today. I also want to thank our co-workers in the athletic department. I'm so fortunate to work with so many great people. A shout out to Dusty and Julie, who helped me out this process. Being on the basketball committee and traveling and trying to interview coaches and that type of stuff was a lot. And Julie and Dusty, I really appreciate your help in that process. I want to take a second. Erica, Ali Taylor, Niko, I want to thank you for believing in us. Minnesota is a special place. My family, we've moved a lot. I understand that's hard. It's transition, and I hope you know how much we appreciate you believing in us and coming to Minnesota. I promise you it's going to be a great experience. Now, when I talk about Niko, you know, I had a conversation with Jim Delaney, the former commissioner of the Big Ten, when I first got to Minnesota. And he talked about how winners win. And if you look at Niko and his background, winners win. If you look at some of the coaches we brought in here the past few years, Keegan with volleyball, Aaron with soccer, Bob with men's hockey, Dawn with women's basketball, they all had a proven track record of winning at a high level and doing things the right way. And when you take a step back and look at Niko and what he's done, especially the past 4 years at Colorado State, but his entire time there, going to the NCAA tournament, winning Mountain West Conference championships, there is no doubt in my mind that we have found the right person to lead our young man and lead this program. So please welcome head coach Niko Medved. Or maybe no photos. I'm going to give that to you.
Wow. Surreal being here today. You know, first thing, obviously, I want to thank President Cunningham and Mark for believing in me. And, you know, you're going to hear me talk a lot about this team together thing, but my team, my wife Erica, who's been with me from the beginning, you have no idea what wives go through. My beautiful daughters Allie and Taylor, they already got their maroon and gold on. What? They were in green and gold, 36 hours ago? My dad, Miro, my mom, Karen, my brother, Anton, my brother, Alexi, my sister-in-law, Sarah. Peter, already here in the Gopher gear here today. You guys look great. But you know what? I want to start here. I want to talk about Ben for a second. You know, and Ben is my friend. I've known Ben forever. He's part of Gopher basketball history. He played here. He poured his heart and soul into this program. And you know what? He's always going to be a part of this. And I just want to make sure that people understand that, you know, this has been a difficult time in college athletics. You know, part of him got thrown in the middle of this, and Ben's going to get another opportunity to be a head coach if that's what he chooses, and he's going to be terrific. And so I want to make sure that I say that today, and I hope, you know, Ben knows he's always welcome around Gopher basketball. You know, listen, I know how rare it is to live a life that you dreamed of. And, gosh, I think my dad, you were telling me yesterday via text, I think it was before I was born, so I'm 51, so before I was born, my dad had season tickets to Gopher basketball. Maybe I was 5 or 6 years old, and I remember going to the barn and watching games. I remember where our seats were, their kitty corner, from where our Gopher bench is now. I grew up going to games. I love the energy in the barn. It's where I really started to love college basketball. I had an opportunity. I played all the sports growing up. I had an opportunity to come as a student manager. I've been an assistant coach here. I've taken my teams here at Furman and Drake to play. It's just a magical place. And so, you know, to be back here right now, it just feels surreal. All I wanted was an opportunity to be a Division I head basketball coach, and to see it all come full circle here is just really, really amazing. You know, why Minnesota? I've seen this place at its best. I believe we have everything it takes here to be successful. We have one of the best universities in the country. We play in the premier league in the country. We have, in my opinion, the best community in the Big Ten. We play in a historic venue that, in my opinion, when it's right, is one of the best places to watch a game and be at a game in college basketball. And I just feel like now is the time. You know, we've went through this transition in college athletics, and now is the time more than ever that Minnesota's poised to take the next step forward. I can't wait to get started. I can't wait to do it. I can't wait to pour my heart and soul into this. You can count on me to do that. And what's interesting about Minnesota is, and I know this from growing up, and you'll hear this, you know, our slogan is Team Together. And it's going to take everyone to be successful. It does in every walk of life. But Minnesotans, when they care about their neighbors, they care about each other, they take a tremendous amount of pride in their state, tremendous amount of pride in their university. And when we rally together, this place is unbelievable. I've seen Minnesotans do that. I've seen them come together and support something unlike anything. And I've seen it done here before, and I believe we can do that again. It's going to take all of us. It starts with me. It starts with our coaches. It starts with the kind of young people that we bring here into the program. You have my word. We'll work on that to do that at the highest level, but it's going to take all of us. But you can feel it, you know, Minnesotans band together unlike any place that I've ever seen and been, and I know that having been here. And we're going to do that here. We're going to do that. And I think now in today's era of college athletics, we're more poised than ever to take the next step. And I look forward to seeing the barn packed, a big game, maybe against a rival, down south, down east. and finding a way to pull it out and having the fans celebrate, seeing ourselves back in the NCAA tournament, seeing ourselves playing in that game, vying to go to the Sweet 16, and building a consistent winner here. And I know when we do that, this place will rally. We'll rally to a level hopefully we've never seen before. So I'm really excited for the opportunity. Go Gophers. I suppose people would, you learn me, I can ramble forever. I kind of am who I am that way, but I think people probably want to ask me questions.
Responders, if you have a question, please raise your hand and bring a microphone to you.
Joe Schmidt, Channel 5. Welcome back, Niko. You said you're poised right now. The university is poised to make the next step. What makes you believe that? Because other coaches have felt the same thing on this day.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think, there's a lot of things, but I think I really believe in what we do and how we do it and the formula to make that happen. I think it's interesting. This is the third head coaching job I've had at a place that I was an assistant prior. And I think the one thing that does helps you when you come in here, you kind of have an immediate vision of what that needs to look like, how you can hit the ground running, what works, at a place like Minnesota. I think that really helps us. Everybody knows it. It's no secret. We're in a changing landscape of college athletics. I believe Minnesota and the Big Ten, with what's moving forward now, is going to be positioned from a rev share NIL perspective to compete. I believe that the people from the top down understand that that's what it's going to take for us to compete. So I think you put all those things together. Now is the time to really get this moving in the right direction.
Andy Greeter, St. Paul Pioneer Press, welcome back. I just wanted to ask you mentioned Ben Johnson, and his roster from last year to this year was gutted, and NIL was a big part of that. Taking aside revenue share for a second, because that's the floor of what's coming, but NIL is the limitless ceiling here. What needs to happen with NIL at Minnesota, and how do you win if you don't have all the resources of Big Ten competition?
Well, I think two things. You can't win if you don't. Everybody understands that. But I think it's also important to understand just because you have the most money doesn't guarantee you're going to be successful. All you have to do is look around college athletics the last couple years. So I think both of those things do matter. I believe this. I believe there's plenty of people here who want to get behind and support this. And I will say this, probably the one thing that's really unique is fans and people have an opportunity to directly impact our success in a way that they've never been able to before. So I think part of it is our job, getting people to believe in what we're doing and realize, hey, this is a program, a place, and people that I really want to get behind here to do that. I believe that the people here are committed to understanding what that looks like as far as raising money. Heck, let's hope people today go out right when we're done with this and join Dinkytown Athletics, right? But those are great questions. That's the truth of what's going on right now. But I think we can make it happen here. I really do.
Dawn Mitchell, Fox 9. Welcome back. You speak about being poised and changes, and I know you're going to dig your hands deeper in the next couple of weeks and months. But from the outset, what is perhaps the number one change that you feel in your mind that the way you coach, the way you run a program, you have to implement when you get here?
I'm a big people person. I think where it's worked for us everywhere is just having the right people on board. It starts with the staff. That's the number one thing is, we've got to get that right. And I believe that we will. I've had tremendous coaches with me along the way. A lot of them have had opportunities to become head coaches, other ones that are on their way. But it's all about starting with that support system, that people who all believe in what we're doing, pulling in the same direction. It's no different with players. Listen, it's talent acquisition business, right? There's never been a great coach who hasn't had great players. I've just coached my third, NBA player here. But the one thing that's in common about all the guys that we've coached, they're tremendous young men. So they're talented, but they're tremendous young men, and they do want to be part of something bigger than themselves than just, and they learn through that. They get everything they want individually. So I think it's talent, but it's finding the right people. So that's the number one thing we have to do. Obviously, the transfer portal open. Recruiting starts immediately. So staff and recruiting is the number one thing. And then right behind that is just engagement. It's engagement in the community. It's trying to get people to understand our vision, what we do, hopefully get people excited about that and want to get on board.
Niko, congratulations. Marcus Fuller, Star Tribune. Can you talk a little bit about the success you had at Colorado State, you know, from the time you were there until the time you left? And also the pieces that you had there, do you anticipate maybe, obviously it happens in coaching searches where players might jump from one school to the other, but also the staff that was already here, what you retain, and then also players?
Yeah, you know, that's a process. I mean, I can say this, you know, unless he doesn't want to be here, Dave Thorson will have the opportunity to stay with us. He's been with me. We go way back, and so I hope that's what happens. I believe it will. I don't want to put Dave on the spot here, but I think he's all in. Can we count on you, Dave? All right, see where we go. You just heard it here, all right? You know, I will definitely bring, you know, some of my staff with me. Brian Cooley, who is with us, is here today. Joe Deciman is with us, is here today. But, you know, we have to get that working. You know, at Colorado State, you know, again, it started with us. I think we do a great job of player evaluation, player development, finding the right people to start with here. It starts with our current roster. We've got some guys here in our current roster that, you know, love to be a part of this moving forward. And hopefully when we get an opportunity to do that here, even starting today, I've already had, you know, conversation that they're going to get excited about that. So it starts there. As far as players, you know, at our other program, I'm not ready to understand, guys. I mean, I was in Seattle trying to beat Maryland to go to the Sweet 16, and we lose on a last, and just been an unbelievable season. And 20 hours later, I'm here in Minneapolis. It's the way that the world works today. So I think for those guys, I told every one of them when I talked to them how much I love them, how proud I am of them, and they just need to take a couple of days here to process what happened, to be proud of what they did and enjoy it, because I don't want to take that from them. They've earned that, and so those things are for another day.
Chris Long from KSTP. Did he travel? No, I'm kidding. You've already answered that. Could you?
They didn't call one, so that's all that matters.
I heard, yeah. Could you have imagined when you were packing up to leave after that year here as an assistant that you'd be able to make that call to your parents and say, hey, I'm coming home?
No. I mean, if I'm being honest, you know, it's no secret. I mean, they'd tell me, I remember, like, you know, I dream, man, whatever I could do to be a Division I head coach today would be a dream come true. God, could you ever imagine, I mean, you know, being a head coach at Colorado State? You know, we'd been there as an assistant, you know, that came true. And then this was something, of course, I dreamed of, and just to have it become a reality, it hasn't hit me yet. You know what I mean? Really, it hasn't hit me, but it will. But no, I couldn't, you know, but dreams can come true. Do you know what I mean? That's what life is. And if you really believe in something and you stick with it and you get the right people who support you, anything can happen. And it's amazing to be sitting here today.
Welcome home. Nadine Babu from gopherhole.com. Obviously, there's so much talk about NIL, but outside of NIL, what other areas of support do you feel that you need, or did you ask Mark Coyle about during your interview process?
You know, I believe that everything else we do have here, you know, and some of those things I think you kind of have to get into the, you know, the big time, the big 30,000 foot view things we have here. I mean, look at this facility. Do you know what I mean? That we have. We're in the Big Ten. I mean, this is the premier, you know, conference in the country. I believe those things. Obviously, you know, I'm connected. You talk to the right people, you know, who are here and have said those things. And I think it also helps me to understand, like you said, Nadine, that I've been here before. I kind of know what this looks like and what works. I think as you maybe get further into it, right, you start, hey, you know, maybe this would be something that we need really to move us to the next level. And listen, I believe Mark and them are committed to doing that. I really do. I mean, I think they know how important it is to get our program up and running. And I'm just excited to see that. You know, when it happens, I just think it's going to be transformative.
Hey, Niko, Dave Cantwell with Associated Press. I'm wondering when you joined the program in the 90s as a manager, if there was like a light bulb moment where you're like, yes, I want to be a head coach.
Gosh, it probably started for me when I had an opportunity to work the Nike All-American camp, and Coach Haskins at the time got me in with George Raveling, and getting to kind of spend some time doing that when look at so many of the people that were working and that were involved with that. And it was maybe around that time where I knew I always wanted to coach, but I'll be honest, growing up, somebody said, hey, you can be the head coach at Roseville High School. You know what I mean? You said, man, that would be awesome to get an opportunity to do that. And then as my career kept going, I kept dreaming bigger and bigger. But I would say it was kind of about that time when I really got to connect with those people that it started thinking, you know what, this is what I want to do.
Daniel House, GophersGuru.com. Niko, this business is really demanding. It requires a lot of sacrifice, relentless work ethic, just a commitment to excellence. What kept you driven and motivated as you worked to this moment in your career?
I think because I got into coaching because I love coaching. I think there's so many other things that go into it. Obviously, everybody knows the financial gains, the notoriety, all that stuff that comes with it. But I know at my core, that's not why I got into coaching. There was no money in coaching when I first got into it. My parents will tell you it was just always something that was in me, coaching, teaching, mentoring. And there's all the other things that you have to be good at and skilled at to do it. But I think what's kept me in it is at its core, that's who I am. And it's like this season, with this team that we had, it just brings back faith again that, in everything that's going on in today's world, you get a group of guys that are just pulling for one another, and we're all pulling in the same direction. We love being together every day. They're willing to sacrifice. And so it's the way we've always done it, although the circumstances around it might be different. And we had, unbelievable success. But it's that keeps me going, that feeling of seeing people get better, teams get better, and just being a part of it. And that's always been with me, and it'll always be with me.
Hey, Niko, congratulations, Reggie Wilson with Care 11. We've seen some first-year coaches like Dennis Gates, Ben McCollum, even Cal and Arkansas be able to come in and take the program to the tournament in year one. Is that something you feel energized to do? Is that a goal here?
That'd be amazing. You know what I mean? And I mean, we want to be as good as we can now. You know what I mean? I mean, that's ultimately the goal to do that. That's one. But I think the big thing is we want to build something sustainable here. We want to have sustained success. So I hope that happens in year one. But the bigger thing is to have sustained success. I mean, I want people who move to the Twin Cities or they're around to say, "Hey, have you been to Gopher basketball game? Oh man, you gotta go to Gopher basketball game if you can get a ticket." You know what I mean? That's my vision for this. And when you do that, it's because you built a consistent winner and you have a product that people want to come out and see. And but short term, yeah, I mean, we want to be as good as we can next year. I mean, that is the goal starting today.
Could you explain a little bit in deeper detail your team together? I guess your version of row the boat, so to speak.
Oh man, it's not row the boat, but for me, I mean, if you look at who I am, my players would tell you I'm the most competitive person they've been around. I may not come across like that all the time. What you see is what you get, but I'm a competitive dude now. But the other thing with me is I really value team. And so I've just always felt like, I got into coaching because I want to be part of something bigger than myself. I think when you can get people to do that, to kind of sacrifice something and really invest in others and the team, it's really powerful things happen. And to be great, you need everybody involved. It starts, like you said, it starts with the coaches and the players, but it starts with the administration here. But then really, it's our fans, it's our supporters, all those things. We need everybody pulling in the same direction. And I think we really, listen, if you want people to invest, you do that through connection. I'm a big believer. You get investment through connection. And so when you can connect with people that way, and people feel connected to you and what you're doing in your program, I think that's where you really start to spur an investment. And I just believe in that. And the more people you get connected, the more people you get invested, it just starts to spiral. And that's what it's about. It's a slogan, but really for us, we try to live that as a way of life.
Niko, the barn's going to turn 100 in a couple of years. How do you look at that place as far as the formula to winning and renovations needed there?
So listen, I follow this from a distance. I've heard all the knocking of the barn. I mean, I told you what that place means to me. Here's what I would say, and I think we've done this at other jobs where people there's been this feeling of, well, here's why we can't do it. Here's why it hasn't worked before. But to focus in on why we can. And here's the thing about the barn. I think we can turn that into a strength. I think we can turn that into a strength of the program. And everybody's talking about like, oh, this is the problem. I think it could be a strength. And I think it's one of the most historic venues in all of college basketball. Have you been to Fog Allen? Have you been to Cameron Indoor Stadium? Those places are not, Now, sure, down the road, are there enhancements you might have to make and do some things to try to modernize it? Yeah. But I love walking in that. I think when people walk, and you know who've all been there before, when that place is packed, there's a certain energy in there that's different. You're on the stage than anywhere you go. There's ghosts in Williams Arena. Do you know what I mean? In a good way, And so I just think that I look at it, I want that to be a strength of our program, is that, man, we got to go play in the barn tonight. You ain't getting out of the barn alive, and that's going to take time. But I look at it that way.
Niko, I know that it's no secret that the state of Minnesota has a lot of talent and that you've recruited here before. I think I've seen some players here, Dawson Garcia, Parker Fox in the back here. What is it about the recruiting Minnesota that excites you now that you're the Gophers coach, and also balancing that with the portal and maybe not having as many scholarships for high school players?
Yeah, I think starting from the end, clearly, the transfer portal is a big part of this, but we'll always recruit high school players. I think you always have to have players developing in your program. I think that's really important. I think we've done that really well at the places that we've been. It's been funny growing up here as a kid to just watch high school basketball in Minnesota be transformed. And it's amazing when you're around the country, you talk to people, everyone comes up here to recruit now because there's high-level players, Obviously, we had an NBA player that came from Minneapolis that played for us at Colorado State. We've got a few others, on our roster that way. So there's great talent here. There's terrific coaching. There's terrific resources around it. I'm biased, but I just think basketball runs deep in the state of Minnesota. I think people are dying for a winner here. I think what helps us is, I know a lot of these people. I have close relationships and understand kind of the landscape and the history of how it works here. I think it starts one by one, but changing the narrative of you can come right here and have everything you need and want to be successful. You can develop personally, you can develop as a player, you can win at the highest level, you can play in the best league in the country, and obviously selling our track record doing that, how we've been able to do that at other players and getting people to believe it. Sometimes it just takes one. It takes one saying, I'm all in, I'm coming, you know what I mean? I want to be a Gopher, and then what happens? The next guy wants to do that, and so we'll work really hard on that, but it's not just Minnesota. The Big Ten has a national brand. I think it's going anywhere that we need to go to find the talent and the people that we need to win. Go to the NCAA tournament, do the things that we need to be successful.
We'll take one or two more questions and then we'll end the press conference. So we'll go back to Nadine.
I've got two rapid fires for you. One, do you plan to hang the banners back in the barn? And two, what are your thoughts on playing St. Thomas?
Ooh. I don't know that the banners aren't in the barn, so that's something we need to talk about. You know what? I can tell them, I don't think, I've already talked to them. I tried to get St. Thomas to play us, but they don't want anything to do with us. So that's a joke, everybody. You know what I mean? Like, I've heard that too or whatever. So I talked to Johnny, and he just, I'm begging him to play, and he doesn't even want to play. So, No, listen, I'm open to that for sure. You know what I mean? I'm open to doing that. He does a great job. You know what I mean? And my brother went to St. Thomas. I think it's really cool to see them doing what they're doing. I think that's awesome. I think it's awesome for basketball in the state of Minnesota. And I'm a competitive guy. It'd be fun. I know if you play St. Thomas, you better buckle up because they're really good. But I could see that happening at some point. Can I promise it's going to be next year? But I could see that happening if he'll play.
Danny Spiewak with KARE 11. I won't ask any more questions about NIL because you're probably sick of talking about it, but I do want to
listen, that's all we talk about. So
right,
it's death taxes, coaches talking about NIL.
Right.
So
well, then I'll segue into just obviously the new thing's revenue sharing. Just how are you going to navigate that? What does that look like? That's new for fans too. What's that going to look like? Do you know what your budget might look like?
I think part of that is, I know where Mark stands on that and where we want to be, positioned in our conference from a rev share perspective. I think part of that is just going to be, when this ruling happens, right? Judge Wilkins rules on that, and I think we have to wait there to make sure. But I feel really, really comfortable that we're going to be positioned from a rev share perspective to do it at the level we need to. I think some of the stuff that I've heard, and I got to learn more, what the Big Ten is doing with that is really cool. I think we're at the forefront of understanding how we want to use rev share, something with standard contracts, all those things. So again, I just think the Big Ten is the mothership around all this stuff. And I think we're going to be in a great position, I believe, when that ruling happens.
All right. Thank you, Coach. I want to thank everyone again for joining us today. We appreciate you being here. Congratulations, Coach, and thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Excited to be here. Go Gophers.
And there you have it. That's the brand new University of Minnesota Gophers head basketball coach Niko Medved being introduced by athletic director Mark Coyle inside one of the practice facilities there at the University Athletics Village. A big crowd on hand to hear the new coach say what they hope are all the right things that they wanted him to say. And it all started out with Mark Coyle introducing him and saying that, Niko, I want to thank you for believing in us. There's no doubt in my mind that we found the right man to lead the men through our program. And then Niko, he started out by saying, I want to thank President Cunningham, who's our new president at the University of Minnesota, along with Mark, for believing in me, which is some wonderful formalities there, which you exactly want to see happen when you've got a new coach that's coming on board. But I thought the thing that was really classy, and I want to bring our executive producer, Ryan Ravlin, into this too, Ryan. I thought this was classy. His first words out of his mouth, and I'm going to quote him here, he said, quote, I want to talk about Ben.
Yep.
Ben is my friend. He's a part of this program, and he always will be a part of this. And then praised Ben Johnson up and down for his commitment to the program here, and in hopes that he will continue on in basketball coaching, and no matter where he ends up, he's always welcome back to the University of Minnesota and to the Barn. For those of us who've got a chance to meet Ben over the past 4 to 5 years, Coach Johnson was a class act. He really was. If you met him, you instantly liked him, and you wanted to cheer for him and his success. And it's painfully obvious here today that Coach Medved is a fan of Ben Johnson's as well.
Yeah, he knows Ben. I wrote that down as well. I thought that was a nice touch to begin his press conference to talk about Ben. He knows Ben, and he knows the difficulties of, Ben Johnson was here for 4 seasons, came over as an assistant from Xavier. And he was here during kind of this NIL transition, so he kind of had an uphill battle, but as we know, Ben Johnson gave it his all, and coaching is tough. It doesn't always work out, so in comes Niko Medved now, but I thought that was a nice touch to begin.
In so many businesses, it doesn't work out, but they do have similar backgrounds here. I mean, Coach Johnson was a product of the University of Minnesota. Niko Medved is a product of the University of Minnesota, and he talked about his father, and he said, Dad was season ticket holders, and he'd bring us to all the games, and that was my very first exposure to Gophers basketball. And our seats were kitty corner, right over there. which gives you a unique perspective as to that this has been a love affair that's been brewing since his childhood. When he was first introduced to Gopher basketball, and coming to the barn, by the way. And lots of discussion on that towards the end of the news conference, as we just heard. And
he almost felt the need to kind of defend Williams Arena, because there's been so much talk about that 100-year-old building holding the Gopher program back, and you hear all the negative things. There's obstructed seatings, the restrooms are not up to standards, it's just an outdated building. And those of us who grew up in Minnesota, we share that passion, that love for it. But recruits who are not from here don't necessarily see Williams Arena like we do.
They don't. I've been here 21 years, and I remember going into Williams Arena my first year because I took our daughters to a women's basketball game. We moved here from the state of New Mexico, and the women's Lobos basketball team was huge. And because we only have daughters, I wanted them to see women's athletics, and I wanted them to see women doing competitive things and great things. So I've always been big on that with our girls. So we took them to the women's basketball games when we moved here 21 years ago, and we saw Lindsay Wayland and all the others play, and they were great teams. And you're right, it can be a unique atmosphere if you want it to be, but if you compare it to some of the other facilities across the Big Ten, in many respects it just simply doesn't compare. And what Coach Medved is trying to say is that, if it's about the game of basketball, and if we build excitement, they will come, and the barn will not matter. In fact, I loved him when he said this, and he said, here's the thing about the barn. This is a quote. Here's the thing about the barn. We can turn that into a strength. Sure, down the road there's some improvements that we'd like to make, some enhancement, yes. But, quote, there are ghosts in Williams Arena in a good way. And when it's packed, it's intimidating. He wants those opposing teams to come on board. When they come into Williams Arena, he wants them to think, oh man, we've got to play in the barn tonight?
And I think that's
We're
key.
not going to get out alive.
When it's packed, it is a great atmosphere. The problem over the last 4 or 5 seasons, as we've seen, it just hasn't been
There's so many more
packed.
empty seats than there are full.
And that creates kind of a airport hangar, kind of empty airport hangar atmosphere. So, but when packed, it is electric. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the first rules of political campaigns, and I come from a news side of all of this, is you always book your candidate into a smaller facility, so that when people come to see them, it's overflowing, and the press reports about the overflowing crowds. Right? So it builds this illusion, whether how true that is or not, that there's a lot of groundswell for that particular candidate. We have not had that for men's basketball in a long, long time here. There's no overflowing crowds coming to see the men play.
Correct. One thing I will point out, he kind of talked about a little bit of news that came out of that. I think we all kind of presume. He talked about Dave. He's talking about Dave Thorson. He's the assistant coach for the Gophers. He was an assistant under Niko Medved at Drake and Colorado State. And then Dave Thorson is the assistant under Ben Johnson here at the U. People who know high school basketball know that Dave Thorson led De La Salle for many, many seasons, won several state championships. So it does sound like he is staying with the team as an assistant.
In fact, he's singled him out in the crowd. Are you in?
Yep.
Yes, all right, he's in.
I think he kind of knew he was going to be in, but now we kind of know that Thorson will stay on board with the Gophers. So,
and that builds some consistency, right?
Yeah.
Some consistency in the program, some familiarity with the high school recruits that are still playing in this state and in the upper Midwest. There's still going to be a face that the parents and the athletes and the supporters are familiar with.
Yeah, and I think that's key too. That helps kind of in this transition period here. So, but he looks like he's ready to go, and getting to the NCAA tournament, that seems to be kind of the number 1 priority, and I think that's a good start right there.
Yeah, but in getting back to that, it was a great question that was posed to him about, look, there are a number of coaches out here who've made it to the tournament in their first year. Do you envision that happening here? And he said, yeah, that would be great. But our goal is to build consistency over the long run, so that we have a consistency of excellence here, and more wins than losses over the long term. And right, let's stand back. isn't that what you want for all of your teams?
Yeah, and you have to be careful how you answer that question too. There was a former Gopher football coach before PJ Fleck, and I will keep his name out of it, who promised roses, let's just say, and it didn't happen. So you do have to be careful. Yes, everybody wants to take the next step. Everybody wants to get to the tournament. But we know how much of a grind the Big Ten schedule is, and with the addition of UCLA, USC, and Oregon, it's only getting tougher. So you want to also be realistic in your expectations.
Yeah. Our own Dawn Mitchell had a great question in there. She had one of the very first questions, by the way, if you're just joining us, and she said, "What's the number one change that we have to make here, Coach?" And he said, simply having the right people on board. That's the start. And I think that gets back to building the staff first. And having that consistency with the coaching staff is going to go a long way in propelling the program forward.
Absolutely. We're going to have Dawn on next hour, too, to kind of talk. I know right now they're doing kind of one-on-ones with Mark Coyle and with Niko Medved. So hopefully we can talk to Dawn and she can kind of explain maybe some other questions that she was able to ask him.
All right. Sounds good. We're going to take a quick break. You've been watching Fox 9 all day as we presented to you the brand new Gophers athletic coach. As he's taking over now the basketball program, Niko Medved, welcoming him in Minnesota. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to be back with a lot more here on All Day in just a moment.
You're watching Fox 9 all day.
Welcome back to All Day. I'm Tim Blotz, and I'm filling in for Amy Hockert this weekend, who's having some wonderful time off, well-deserved time off. I want to take us a look at now some of the headlines that we have going on around the state. And it begins at the University of Minnesota. We've been talking about them all morning here so far. The U of M has issued a safety alert now after a string of armed robberies. And they've all taken over the span of about 30 minutes. And this happened early Sunday morning. And then we had another attempted armed robbery, and this was late last night. Now, all of these are happening in Dinkytown, and it happened off campus but involved campus community members. And police say that the suspects, they are 3 to 4 men wearing black sweatshirts and masks, and one of them's armed with a gun, the other is armed with a knife. Now, their vehicle is a gray BMW SUV, and it does not have any license plates on it. Now, anyone with information is asked to call police. And we've known over the years that these crimes in Dinkytown, they pop up from time to time, and there's always some jurisdictional issues over who's covering this. Is it Minneapolis police? Is it campus police? But that's why they're putting out the crime alert here right now for a string of armed robberies in the Dinkytown area. All right. One of the other headlines we're following here this morning is the wife of former state senator Justin Eichorn has now filed for divorce, and this is all following his arrest last week. Now, Justin Eichorn is accused of trying to hire a teen prostitute who turned out to be an undercover officer. Bloomington police say 13 others were also arrested in that exact same prostitution sting. And yesterday, Eichorn's wife filed a petition for the dissolution of their marriage, and this was up in Itasca County. Eichorn has since resigned from his Senate seat and will return to court for a detention hearing coming up tomorrow, where federal prosecutors are expected to ask for him to remain in custody. All right, to national news now, and this one's making headlines. In fact, it came out yesterday afternoon, and this is where top national security officials in the Trump administration apparently texted war plans for military strikes in Yemen to a group chat that included the editor of the Atlantic magazine. Now, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth was all a part of the group chat, as was Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Vice President J.D. Vance. According to the Atlantic, the material in the chat contained operational details on that strike in Yemen and included targets along with weapons that the U.S. would be using in this attack. And then hours later, after the magazine editor received the text, the U.S. started launching those strikes in Yemen. The National Security Council is now looking into this breach. President Trump initially told reporters that he was not aware of the breach. The White House has said no war plans were exchanged over the chat and no classified material was included. But this is a big subject of a Senate committee hearing that's going on at this moment at the Capitol. All right, let's take a quick look at our weather forecast out there today.
Good afternoon, beautiful blue sky. It is another very nice start to a day. It was certainly looking and feeling a little more like spring, losing a lot of ice on area lakes. We have the sunshine, that end of March sunshine certainly helping things as we stay fairly seasonable, although the sun certainly helps. Now, we'll eventually get some cloud cover to arrive in the metro, probably late into the afternoon hours as a weak little system passes by just off to our south and west, right along a stationary boundary. May just be enough oomph in the atmosphere, enough gusto, so to speak, to get a couple of very light rain showers going late this afternoon and this evening. Something similar may happen Wednesday evening, Wednesday night with the next little clipper that's already pushed into the Pacific Northwest. And then a much larger storm system will arrive, likely as we get into late Friday and into the weekend. That will bring some big changes potentially on Friday, and then what could be kind of a smattering of things over the course of the weekend. I'll show you the 7-day here in a second. Meanwhile, here's Futurecast. Some solid sunshine. Light drips certainly possible, especially along and south of the 94 corridor. A few hundredths of an inch, maybe just kind of enough to wet the ground or ruin the car you got washed just last couple of days. So not a huge concern. That dives south and east. We're quiet in the overnight hours. A couple clouds around, maybe a flurry in northern Minnesota. We'll start off with some sunshine on Wednesday, and then clouds will increase yet again, and that could lead to more shower opportunities, rain shower opportunities. In and around midnight, give or take, and then notice how overnight hours, it's mostly north of 94. We'll fine-tune that as we get closer, but some scattered showers around. We lose that as we get past sunrise on Thursday. Thursday sees some sunshine. Could be the warmest day of the week. Remains to be seen, though. I'm going to show you why here in a second. Meanwhile, high temperatures for your Tuesday, not too shabby. Either side of 50, about 5 degrees above average. Some sunshine until late in the day when those shower chances arrive. Here's that 7-day forecast. Back to the freeze mark tonight. Middle 50s as we get into Wednesday with that evening and overnight drip chance. Sunshine near 60 on Thursday. And then I realize it says low 60s on Friday. We're going to see. So there's going to be a large contrast of temperatures in the upper Midwest. This is kind of a snapshot for potential highs coming into Friday afternoon. Now, this is one computer model. They're all showing something different. There is going to be a stationary, some sort of frontal boundary in here. Northern side of that front, temperatures will be much colder, 30s, 40s, some low 50s. South of that front, a lot of 70s and maybe some pocket low 80s. And the actual distance between the two from north to south will be quite small, 40, 50, 60 miles. So that's a Small area to kind of fine tune. So does that front end up here like this map shows, or does it end up farther north? Putting the Twin Cities what we call the warm sector, aka the 70s, or even close to 80 in some cases. Or does it drop farther and farther to the south and put us in an even colder zone? That remains to be seen. So I kind of split the defense, so to speak. Low 60s, but there's a lot of wiggle room. The farther north you go, the better your chances for colder temperatures. The farther south you go, the better your chances for warmer temperatures. You get the idea. Either way, doesn't matter how warm we get on Friday, we will be on the colder side of things once we get into the weekend. So temperatures sliding through Saturday, maybe some off and on rain showers, can even rule out a couple of rumbles of thunder. Maybe some rain showers lingering into early Sunday as well, and certainly cool with highs into those lower 40s. All right, more All Day Live is coming up next.
You're watching Fox 9 all day.
Welcome back to All Day, everyone. I'm Tim Blotz, filling in for Amy Hockert this week, who's, I'm hoping, is on a wonderful beach someplace, just soaking up all the sunshine because she deserves it. She pours her heart and soul into this show, and we miss her around here already. Hey, I want to have us take a look at some of the other stories that are happening around the area right now. And one of them, I got to start with the Twins, because there's a story in The Athletic today that the Pohlads are now asking for at least $1.7 billion for the Twins. Of course, they are exploring a sale of the team, and they've got more than $425 million in debt so far. And I think that was one of the striking things, and a lot of that probably has to do with coming out of the pandemic, Ryan.
Yeah, a couple things that came out of this. The $425 million in debt was a big one. And then there's also the Pohlads also want to stay in control of the club, which is also kind of, for fans, they might not like that quite as much. But the $425 million in debt that you referred to, in that article it said one group had a bill of $1.5 billion, and that was deemed as kind of a non-starter. And just for some comparison here, Tim, the Baltimore Orioles sold for $1.725 billion. So that's kind of what the Twins are seeking here.
So if they want to sell the team, okay, so they would sell the controlling interest in the team, but it sounds like they still want to manage it?
Well, it sounds like they want some sort of control of it, yes, yeah, and they still want to be involved in kind of the day-to-day, yeah. But it's a little bit unclear what that would look like.
So going forward here, how does that and I'm thinking out loud here as we're talking about this. You know, the season is about to get underway. Is this something that's likely going to happen yet this year?
No.
Do you think, or after the baseball season is over with?
I think it could be years. I mean, you look at just across the street there at Target Center, what the Timberwolves situation with Glenn Taylor selling that team to Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez. That thing is dragged on for years. So these things do not happen quickly. And there's Major League Baseball gets involved in this, and they have to approve owners and all that kind of stuff. So this is going to be a long process.
Yeah. And speaking of baseball, I would be remiss if I didn't say that Jim Rich, our sports director, is literally in a car right now, driving down to St. Louis for the Twins opener that's coming up tomorrow in St. Louis. And baseball is here already. And
it's here.
I'm loving it.
Yeah.
This is always an exciting time of the year. And hopefully we will be talking to Jim coming up in our next hour here and all day as well. So that's going to be fun. All right, let's talk about the Wolves and the Wild. Not the best of nights for either one of those teams. The Wolves, they ended up losing last night 119-103 to the Pacers. The Wild, they lose 3-0 to the Stars. And it's like, this is not what we need for either one of these teams at the moment.
No, and Tim, both these teams are kind of in similar positions.
Yep.
The Wild have a little bit more of a comfortable lead in terms of the playoffs. The Wolves are trying to get out of that play-in game and into just the top 6 so they don't have to play those elimination games early. But this is, I mean, the Stars are a good team. Don't get me wrong there. The Pacers have beat the Wolves now twice in the last few weeks, so that's not a good loss there.
No, not at all. And then we got this little nugget. This is a little gem today coming from USA Today. And what they've done is they've named Can Wonderland the second best mini golf in the entire country.
Yeah, I love that. I went with my nieces and nephews. It's a great place to go. I'm more of a Pirates Cove guy in Brainerd.
Yeah, you and I both.
Yeah.
They got one of those at the Wisconsin Dells and tourist traps all across the country. And those Pirate Coves are amazing. But this is something.
Great too.
Can is something. So take your families there. It's going to be pretty good. And then finally,
well, we'll get to this one next. We'll probably have to wrap it up. We're going to save this next one for the 1 o'clock hour.
I love that idea. Okay, yeah, we're coming up on 57 minutes after the hour. So we want to thank you so much for joining us for the first hour of All Day and encourage you to come on back. We got a lot more to talk about here in our second hour, and we talk to some of our reporters. We're going to go to Dawn Mitchell, who is just out of the news conference with a brand new Gophers basketball coach, Coach Medved, and we'll have some more insights on what she thought it was like there inside the room where it all happened. You're watching Fox 9 All Day. We're coming back in a few moments. Well, hi there, everyone. My name is Tim Blotz here with Fox 9. Welcome to our second half hour of All Day here on streaming on the Fox Local app. We're so grateful that you could be here with us. I want to give a quick shout out to our folks in the control room right now. I'm getting a mix minus in my ear. If we can finally fix that just a little bit. We've got so much here to talk about here today, beginning with the new head basketball coach, Niko Medved, who was just introduced here within the past hour at the Gopher Athletic Village. He becomes the new head basketball coach that hoping to elevate the program here in Minnesota. Ryan Rablin, our executive producer, is going to join us now here, and lots of positive energy coming out of this news conference in the past hour, right?
Yes, there's always a lot of hope and a lot of excitement anytime you bring in a new coach, and especially one who is familiar to Gopher fans, right? Mm-hmm. Niko Medved, while that name might not jump off the page to a lot of basketball fans, he's starting to build a pretty solid resume. We saw what he did in the NCAA tournament with Colorado State. He had them this close to going to the Sweet 16. He referenced that in his press conference today, that just 36 hours ago he was in Seattle coaching for Colorado State, and now all of a sudden he finds himself back where he started as a student manager for the Gophers. And it's funny how things kind of come full circle sometimes.
And I love how it goes back even further than that, Ryan, when he was at the podium today talking about his father and how it was his father who introduced him to Gopher basketball as a kid. His dad was season ticket holders.
Yeah.
And he looked at everyone in the audience and says, I remember exactly where we sat. My seats were right up there, kitty corner from all the action. And that was his first introduction to Gopher basketball as a child with his father at a basketball game, and developing that love for the Gophers. And he said so many times today, this is such a surreal moment. And he even said that to our sports director, Jim Rich, who met him at the airport last night. He said, Jimmy, this is such a surreal moment to be here. I can't believe this has actually happened. So there's a lot of euphoria at the moment going on over at the Athletic Village, the fact that they can bring him on board and help to move the program forward and build some more excitement around Gopher men's basketball.
Yeah, and I think that's key, right? Get the excitement back. And Coach Medved talked about that. He talked specifically about Williams Arena and how electric that building can be when it's packed, when there's a big game. I remember back in the day when the Gophers used to play Michigan State. Mm-hmm. That place was absolutely rocking. We haven't seen that over the past few years. They're just the team hasn't been as competitive as fans would like, and they haven't been to the NCAA tournament since Richard Pitino's days. And that's kind of step one, right? Is building that excitement back up, getting fans back into the building, and from there, hopefully, it translates into some wins.
Yeah, and he talked about the barn a lot. He said, "Look, a lot of people dog the barn. A lot of our own fans dog the barn." It's maybe not the best recruitment tool that we could have at the University of Minnesota. If you're a hotshot high school player or even a transfer student through the porthole, you're thinking, do I really want to go play in a 100-year-old facility when I've got my choices of playing everywhere else? And here's what Coach said. He said, quote, "Here's the thing about the barn. I think we can turn this into a strength." He said, yes, sure, down the road, there are some enhancements that we can make to the barn. But he said, quote, "There are ghosts in Williams Arena in a good way." And he wants those opposing teams to come in here and think, oh man, we got to play in the barn tonight. We're not going to get out of there alive. And that's the excitement he wants to start building into this program tonight. But I need to also back up and say that this is very similar to what Coach Johnson said 4 years ago as well, right? We kind of go through this every kind of coaching cycle. They're going to want to bring this new level of excitement into the program.
I think any coach who starts with a new program wants that excitement, and that's priority number one, right? And Ben Johnson wanted that too. We got little glimpse this year. I think that the team, the results weren't always there, but they showed a lot of fight. They had some solid wins. They beat a UCLA team in Los Angeles when they were down by 20 plus points. And UCLA went to the tournament, and so they were no joke of a team. So you did see some fight there with Ben Johnson's team, but I think it goes back to just the talent wasn't really there, and in the end they couldn't make a run in the Big Ten tournament.
And while we're talking about Coach Johnson, I think it's really important to say for those viewers who are watching us now on the stream, just joining in, did not have a chance to see the news conference that got underway about an hour ago. Literally the first words out of Coach Medved's mouth was, quote, "I want to talk about Ben. Ben is my friend. He's a part of this program. He will always be a part of this program." And went to go on to say what a great coach he is, hopes he stays in coaching, and no matter where he ends up, he's always welcome back to be a part of this program and welcome back to the barn to be a part of Minnesota basketball.
It'll be interesting to see
classic.
where Ben lands. Will
Right.
he? It would be hard to imagine he would come back as an assistant with the Gophers. I think that's probably not super realistic. But I think he will land as an assistant somewhere, or maybe he takes a job at a smaller school. It'll be interesting. I think Ben's coaching days are not done, though. He had 4 seasons here, and his first coaching experience was with a Big Ten school, which is pretty rare, really.
Mm-hmm. My gut tells me that his coaching career is just getting started.
Oh, yes.
That many great things are going to happen to Coach Johnson ahead of times. And for those of you who've met him, I tell you what, when you meet Coach Johnson, the first thing you walk away from is you think to yourself, my goodness, what a humble guy. What a great guy he is. He's just easy to talk to. He's approachable. And I think that personality trait is just going to carry him very far. I really do. And I think everyone wishes him all the best. At the same time, looking forward to perhaps a new chapter of Gopher men's basketball.
Absolutely. So we are waiting here for Dawn Mitchell. She was at the press conference. We heard her ask a few questions. So following kind of the formal press conference, there was some one-on-ones that took place with athletic director Mark Coyle, and then with Coach Niko Medved too. So we're hoping to get Dawn on the line here, so we can kind of ask her what some of those conversations are. So
yeah, no question. And I found this to be fun too. A lot of us know Nadine Babu of Gopher Hole Sports, and she's become a good friend to a lot of us here in the media community here in the Twin Cities. And she asked the question that I think is always in the back of Gopher fans and certainly St. Thomas fans' minds. And she said, would you be willing to play St. Thomas in basketball? And Coach laughed at that, and he said, yes, I absolutely would be open to that. And he says, I think it's really cool to see what they're doing over there at St. Thomas. So he understands the rivalry. He understands the politics here in town. He understands the sentiment. And it was fun to hear him answer that question. He did not rule it out. And I think that's the headline to that question.
And St. Thomas would be, I mean, they are a solid school.
Absolutely.
I mean, they now have eligibility to compete in the NCAA tournament. That they did not have it for 2 years as they did the shift up to D1, but now that team is on the brink of being in the big dance. A lot of people might think St. Thomas would get there before the Gophers. And
look what St. Thomas has done in just a couple of years with that program. It's remarkable what they've done over there.
Yeah.
So it would be a fun matchup to see, and
it would be.
And Coach Medved did not close the door to it at all today, which I think is intriguing and curious and wonderful all at the same time.
Agreed. I think we all have high hopes for the Gophers moving forward here. So, Tim, what about taking a quick break here? I'm going to try to get Dawn on the line so we can come back on the other side and talk to Dawn.
All right. Sounds good. We'll be back in a moment. All right, welcome back to All Day. Love it outside today. If you've been looking out your window or maybe taking your pet for a walk, lots of sunshine, but it's taken a little while to warm up today. Jennifer McDermott joins us now. We're still very much in that transition section of March, right? Where it just can't figure out what it wants to be outside.
We really are, yeah. It's Mother Nature is kind of like, okay, do we want to bring spring into the mix? I don't know. We still kind of want to keep things nice and chilly as we head throughout the rest of March. So we'll see what she decides to do with the weekend. The weekend is looking very interesting right now. I'll leave it at that. Here are the highs so far today. So a lot of us making it into the upper 40s, the low 50s, 47 for New Richmond, 52 for Montevideo, 40 for Hibbing. Our average high this time of the year is 45 degrees. So we are kind of in the ballpark of where we should be. And you know, I went out for a walk earlier this morning with my dogs and my little man, and it was really nice. The sun was shining really, really bright, so that certainly helped things. But our winds were also rather weak, so it wasn't the worst. I'll just say that. Right now, though, we are looking at our next chance of rain arriving perhaps as we work our way into the afternoon and evening. But with that being said, it's going to be very, very, very slim chance for rain. So today, this afternoon, forecasting a high near 50 degrees, lighter breezes, and a potential for a stray raindrop here and there. By tonight, passing clouds, drips fade early, and we are staying quiet overnight. 32 for the overnight low. So a lot of us will be touching the 20s, so dipping below freezing, but here in the metro, I think right around freezing. And then tomorrow, hey, a little warmer than what we are expecting today. 54 for the daytime high for your Wednesday. Live look outside, White Bear Lake. Not a whole lot of ice out there. Ice out should be just around the corner any day now. 51 is where we are currently sitting at. So today's forecasted high of 50 is not going to happen. It's going to be warmer than that. A dew point of 21 degrees. So that tells us our atmosphere is incredibly dry. Therefore, any rain we may have later this afternoon and evening is going to be incredibly light. Most of us should be staying dry. Winds from our west-northwest at 13 miles an hour right now. At the moment, we have plenty of sunshine here in the metro, but you can see out towards the west, we do have the cloud cover continuing to increase. And our next chance of rain, as I mentioned, is slowly working in towards west central parts of the state, excuse me, near Alexandria, for example. This will continue that track down towards the south and east as we head further into this evening, but at best maybe picking up a couple hundredths of an inch. So it's really not looking like a big rainmaker, most of us staying dry. Now out towards the Pacific, we take you way out towards the Pacific, way off the coast of the Pacific Northwest. That area of low pressure that's just south of Alaska right now, that is going to be our next big storm system impacting the Midwest as a whole. Once again, I believe this is the third weekend in a row that we are expecting an area of low pressure to be rather impactful across the Midwest, and that's the one that we are waiting on for the arrival of Friday into Saturday and Sunday and so on. Here are the temperatures right now across the metro. A lot of us in the upper 40s, low 50s, 48 in Hastings, 50 in Hutchinson, 48 currently in Painesville, 46 in Northfield. Temperatures further up towards the north, that's where we have the 30s as well as the 40s. 48 in Red Wing right now. Winds coming in from our west-northwest only at about 5 to 15 miles an hour. So Tim, today, yeah, it's certainly a little bit of a it felt, in my opinion, it felt kind of like a crisp fall morning, but this afternoon temperatures above average, and we will continue the warming trend by Thursday and Friday. We're looking at potentially the 50s and 60s.
See, that's what I'm all about, right? Let's warm this up a little more, especially as we head deeper into spring. Thanks, Jennifer. Appreciate it. All right, I want to get us back to our brand new head basketball coach here in Minnesota, Niko Medved. Our own Dawn Mitchell was in the crowd among the journalists there, greeting and hearing the new news conference. I want to head out to her live right now because not only did she have one of the very first questions, which is an outstanding question, But Dawn, we watched the news conference here, and of course we get to see the podium shot. You had the luxury of seeing everything else in the building and can read the room, so to speak, and I want to know your perspective.
Well, first of all, Tim, it was amazing to see the amount of people that showed up for this. And not only was PJ Fleck there, Bob Motzko, there were so many players, current players, Parker Fox, so many people just filling this room. And of course, Niko had his family in that front row. And it was great because we all know that he grew up here in Roseville and he's made his way back. So it's a full circle moment. He says that this is a dream come true, but the energy in the building was refreshed. And I love how he showed what a class act that he truly is by at the beginning saying how much he appreciates and respects Ben Johnson, how they're good friends, how this is a business, but that the door will always be open for him to be part of this family if he would like. So a class move off the top. So a feel good, if you will, when it comes to something like this. They even had the tuba players and some of the band people out. But it was great. Yeah, it was great to welcome him home. And then he got down to the nitty-gritty of answering some really tough questions. He has to deal with the nil money, has to deal with revenue sharing. So a lot of that is going to be placed right at his doorstep as soon as he starts. So a lot to go on that way.
Dawn, I want to praise you here because I thought you asked a super question, and that is, coaches all have to make some changes when they come on board to a new program like this and try and build upon, what was left behind. And you asked, what's the number one change you want to make? And he gave you a really good response.
Yeah, we all know that they're not going to lay out the specifics right now, right? Like I said, there's so much to dig into with revenue sharing, waiting for the judge's decision on that, also with no money, but talent and coaching staff. And Dave Thorson, he kind of put him on the spot a little bit saying, hey, he's here in the room, and I don't want to put pressure on him, but if he wants to stay and be part of my coaching staff, and Dave over in the corner put the thumbs up. So we already got a confirmation on one of the members of his coaching staff. So, it's true. You have to build your brand. I personally hate the term buying in, but you need to know who your talent is. Not only with players, but also with coaching staff, and also dealing with a team together. He says it's different than row the boat, but how he really wants people to feel a part of this. And this is the new age, right? In not only college basketball and college sports, but also in the pros. You really have to feel like you're a part of something in order to build something. And I thought that was one of the main messages he was trying to get across.
And that's what he's trying to do, is build a culture. And he said not row the boat, as you underscored there, but he wants to build his own brand identity with the basketball program, and I thought that was very key.
And I heard you earlier talking with Ryan about how he was talking about St. Thomas when Nadine asked that question. And what I really like, too, is he was kind of letting everyone know I'm just joking, right? And he says, well, St. Thomas won't play me. Johnny Tower won't play me. And then it was really quiet in here, and I was like laughing. I was sitting behind Nadine, and he goes, I'm joking, everybody. I'm joking. I think he's going to bring some kind of levity to the program as well, and humor. So that's kind of cool. Tomorrow, he's going to sit down and do one-on-ones. Now, his parents still have season tickets to Gopher basketball. And I believe, they've moved around, if you have your season tickets for long enough, that I believe they're somewhere behind the bench or something like that. So he's going to point out where his parents still have season tickets. But he has been coming to watch the Gophers since he was 5 or 6 years old. And that's where he got his first taste of basketball. So, yes, he's been assistants elsewhere and then gone on to be head coach elsewhere. But he came here, and now it's that full circle moment of coming home. And we were talking to Mark Coyle right afterward, and of course he said the experience that Niko has when it comes to going to the NCAA tournament, that's huge. 3 of the past 4 years. So to have that experience, to have that kind of gravitas when it comes to recruiting, that's going to be huge as well.
Mm-hmm. Looking forward to those interviews coming up later tonight, Dawn. Hey, thanks so much. We know we got you in the middle of your day and you're trying to put together all your coverage for us tonight, but thanks for taking a few moments here. Deeply appreciate it. All right. And
Yeah,
from the Gophers,
thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks again. From the Gophers, let's transition now to baseball, because we got the Twins that are starting up tomorrow, and our sports director, Jim Rich, who got the exclusive with Coach Medved last night as he arrived at MSP Airport, is now in a car. He's literally driving to St. Louis for the Twins opener tomorrow. So give us an idea. Where are you at right now, Jim? Jim, you got us?
How you doing? We're riding along Highway 218. We are south of Cedar Rapids, just about to Iowa City, going across the beautiful state of Iowa. You know, it's real hard. We're trying to get to St. Louis for the Twins opener, but we're driving by such appealing roadside attractions. Like, we went by an exit that proclaimed they had, we're not sure if it was the world's largest or the Iowa State largest, but it was the largest frying pan. So we were very intrigued by that. One, how they determined that they had the largest frying pan. And two, is it something that Guinness actually recognizes? So we were intrigued by that. We stopped and got some meat sticks. Aaron Goodyear, photographer, doing the driving. We are 44 miles from Mount Pleasant and 3 miles from Hills, Iowa. And we can give you a little view of the terrain here. You can see the fields haven't been worked up yet for spring planting. It's a little greener here, but not too much greener than back in Minnesota. But we're not here to give you the Iowa agricultural forecast. No, we're here to talk Twins baseball. And we are on our way to St. Louis as the Twins will open up the season on Thursday at 3 o'clock. And they will take on the St. Louis Cardinals. Twins dealing with injuries already. Brooks Lee and Brock Stewart have been put on the injured list. So that means they'll miss at least the first 10 days of the season. But interesting, Royce Lewis, Tim, has not been put on the injured list. So there may be an outside chance that the Twins feel he'll be back within 10 days. And if that's the case, that is huge, because we talked about it at spring training, how the Twins need to stay healthy. Last year, Correa, Buxton, and Lewis only played 22 games together out of 62 games? That's not a good percentage. They need those three on the field together as much as possible. Pitching-wise, Twins look good. Pablo Lopez will get the start in the opener against the Cardinals, and he'll go against former Twin Sonny Gray. So those two were best friends when they were together for that brief time in Minnesota. But now Sonny is the ace for the Cardinals. He'll get the start in that first game. So we'll see how it plays out. But then, of course, Joe Ryan will be your second, followed by Bailey Ober, Chris Paddock, and Simeon Woods Richardson. And all five of them had a pretty good spring training. So the rotation looks good. The bullpen looks good, minus Brock Stewart. But, you know, if they can keep it together, keep as many people as possible on the field, this team can get back to where they were, you know, for the first half of the season, where they were in first place or right there, and not that cratering finish that they had at the end of the season when the injuries all caught up. But it's a beautiful day down here. 53 degrees right now here, and we're rolling along. We will be live tomorrow for you. Twins have a workout day in St. Louis at 1 o'clock, so we will hop into all day and let you guys see the players that have come north from Fort Myers. Get your first look at them as they get set to open the season. We'll be live for that, and then on Thursday we will do a live pregame show before the television broadcast begins. We'll be right on the field, give you all the day's festivities. We'll be live in the morning news, all that fun stuff. So we'll try to capture the first day of baseball, because that means spring is not far away. By the way, we're not from Iowa. I've given you enough of soliloquy. I'll let Mr. Ravlin jump in here. If you have a question, you can relay it through him because, unfortunately, I cannot hear you.
Oh, well, that's good. Thanks, Jimmy. We deeply appreciate it. Ryan, I am curious if you could ask Jimmy to give us a little bit of perspective, because he was at spring training camp, and Rocco ran a different kind of training camp this year, where he wanted them to be more active off the top, off the start, and throughout. Has that helped them? Has he seen a demonstrable difference so far as we're now approaching opening day?
Yeah, so Jim, what Tim is asking is that this spring training, Rocco Baldelli has kind of taken a different approach to camp, and to see how that might help with injuries and such. Can you talk about a little bit about that? Because I know you were down at Fort Myers.
It brought me back to the days of watching Ron Gardner through so many drills back in the day. And of course, Gardy is a disciple of Tom Kelly, and we all know how Tom Kelly was a particular on how things were done. He was a baseball man through and through. Gardy learned from him, carried the Twins on the same way. And then when Rocco took over, he's considered a player's manager because, of course, he was a great player in his time till injuries caught up with him, and that ended his career. But his philosophy was he wanted the players to get themselves ready on their own. And so it was kind of a laissez-faire approach that Rocco took with the team, and guys would wear whatever they wanted. Well, they sometimes looked like a beer league softball team sometimes out there, just shorts and a ratty T-shirt, and they would hit in the cages. They didn't do drills together. This year, that was completely different. We're coming by the Riverside Casino, exit 80. Tim, we may be bailing here. We may have to go. We'll put money on the Twins, of course, against the Cardinals. But back to what Rocco did this time around, and I think he had some influence of Carlos Correa here, because Correa, when asked about the new drills, so what they did is they hit batting practice every day together as a team. They field together as a team. They run together as a team. So the whole group was together throughout spring training. And what Correa said when the reporters asked him when I was down there is Carlos said, guys, if guys can find a shortcut, or if they can take a shortcut, they will. This way, there's no more shortcuts. We're all together. We're building team chemistry, and people can point out things that I'm doing. I can point out things to them, and we can try to improve ourselves. And if you watch back, it's posted on our Fox 9 YouTube page. Kent Herbeck was on Sports Now Sunday night, and I asked him about that. And he was 1,000% for this approach, that he says that's what he grew up with. And he says it just builds chemistry, because he said in baseball, unlike any other sport, you are together for months at a time. You play every single day. You see these guys every day. You're eating dinner with them every day. So he says the faster you build that chemistry, the more everybody's accountable to the group. He says it can only help the team and not hurt them. So that's what I like to see. I think Correa pushed that, and I think Rocco saw the benefit of that as well. So hopefully that will pay dividends for the club.
All right. Jim Rich coming to us on the road as he heads down to St. Louis for the opening day in the ballpark down there later on this week on Thursday. Thanks, Jimmy. We deeply appreciate it.
I've got one question for Jimmy. What is the road trip snack of choice? What do you guys got? Is it beef jerky? Is it gummy worms?
Here it is. We stopped at a gas station in Urbana, Iowa.
Okay.
And these things will be stopping at that gas station on the way back. It's
beef sticks.
Amana Meat Shop. These were cheddar beef sticks, but they really had a bite. And these are family cooked. So these are original beef sticks made in Amana. So apparently that's the town in Iowa. As you can see, the bag is empty, so you know they went over rather well. They are gone already. And of course, the fuel of choice when you're riding 7,000 miles in a car, Mountain Dew. And we also had a Casey's knockoff of a Chick-fil-A crispy chicken sandwich. Chick-fil-A has nothing to worry about. They'll do fine. They're not going to go out of business after eating that. And then, of course, the
we're still going.
These are always great in the car because, you know, you don't smash them. They don't fall over the car. You got to go with the guy with the mustache. Always a good choice. Original is my choice of those. I think that's about all we got so far. We've only had one stop, so we're not too far along yet.
And for everyone who thinks that the life of a television reporter and sports reporter is glamorous, that just underscored right there.
Exactly.
We're just like everyone else, right?
Jimmy, thank you so much for that. And we'll check in with you tomorrow once you're at the ballpark. And safe travels to you and Goody.
All right, here's another look at the pristine, beautiful scenery that we're enjoying on the ride through the great state of Iowa.
They say southern Iowa is beautiful this time of year, and we're seeing it firsthand here.
There you go. We're just crossing Davis Creek. There it is, the famous Davis Creek.
The Davis Creek.
We've all read about in our history books.
Know it well. All right, thanks, Jimmy.
Sounds good. Ryan, thanks. Thanks for, the technology these days, it's ever changing, and it's, sometimes those video feeds, they break up a little bit as you're going through different cell phone ranges, but we deeply appreciate Jimmy joining us and Goody for the ride down to St. Louis for the Twins opener. Look, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back with more all day here. The second half hour coming up right after this. All day you've been taking a look there during the break of White Bear Lake, and just gorgeous clouds out there today, a lot of bright sunshine. Jennifer McDermott says we're going to warm up toward the end of the week. Look, we want to check in with our Corin Hoggard, who's at the state capitol for us today. And Corin, housing issues is what you're looking on today, right? Some hearings on this?
Yeah, Tim, 3 committees were scheduled to hear various housing bills, although one of them has now canceled its entire committee hearing. But yeah, this is the entire package that a bipartisan group of legislators has brought in to try to kind of fix the gap. We have a shortage of something around 120,000 homes in Minnesota to satisfy the the population that we have, and that gap has just been growing over the years. They first really identified it as a problem when it was 50,000, and that was just about 5 or 6 years ago. So it's more than doubled in that time, and legislators are trying to do something to address it. They did this last year, though, too, and it failed. A lot of the cities, most of the cities in Minnesota, don't really like being told how to handle housing from St. Paul. They want to do it their own way. And so they're here today to oppose a lot of these bills as well. However, the group of legislators, like I said, bipartisan, and it just keeps growing every year because here they're realizing that the problem is getting worse and that whatever the local governments have been doing hasn't been improving the problem. So it's a matter of, are they going to step on all the local cities' toes here, or will the cities kind of rein them in and maybe kill these bills one more time?
So, Corn, is this a question of legislation or more regulation to build housing? I guess the ultimate question in here are these bills asking for state money? Because you know better than anyone else that we're facing a fiscal cliff here in another 2 years, and a lot of lawmakers are not in the mood to spend any more of the state treasury.
Yeah, most of these are cost-free, but it's stuff like telling cities they can't mandate a minimum number of parking spaces to go along with new development, limiting zoning by cities to block multifamily and mixed-use developments, making sure that condos, apartments, and mixed-use developments are allowed in any commercial zone. And then the big one's really the Starter Homes Act, and I think that's the one that I've heard the most opposition from cities on. The Starter Homes Act would allow smaller homes on smaller lots. It would also prohibit aesthetic mandates, so cities could not say it has to look like this or else you can't build this new development. And it also would streamline the administrative process for new development. So a lot of that stuff I think a lot of people can agree on, but then cities don't like being told what they can and can't do in these realms.
All right, Corn Hoggard coming to us. Grateful that you could check into us from the Capitol and tell us what you're working on today. That will be tonight on Fox 9 News starting at 5 o'clock. Thanks, Corn. Appreciate it. All right, I want to shift now and look at some of the headlines that are happening across the state. Of course, one of the bigger ones is the University of Minnesota has issued a safety alert now after a string of armed robberies. And this happened over a really tight period of time, very early Sunday morning. In fact, over a 30-minute stretch here. And then another attempted robbery, and this one happened late last night. These are all happening in the Dinkytown area, which of course is just off campus, but it involves the campus community and a lot of students. Now, police suspect here that they think there's about 3 to 4 men involved here. They're wearing black sweatshirts and masks, and one of them was armed with a gun, the other had a knife on them. Now, the vehicle that they're supposedly driving in is a gray BMW. It's an SUV, but with no license plates here. Anyone with information is just asked to call Minneapolis police or campus police, and so they can get more information to help track down these suspects. Also happening today, we got the wife of former state senator Justin Eichhorn, who has now filed for divorce, all following his arrest last week. Justin Eichhorn is accused of trying to hire a teen prostitute who turned out to be an undercover officer. Now, Bloomington police say that he was not the only one here. There were 13 others who were also arrested in this same sting operation. And yesterday, Eichhorn's wife, she filed a petition for the dissolution of their marriage in Itasca County. Now, Eichhorn has since resigned his seat from the state Senate and will return to court for a detention hearing. That's coming up tomorrow, where we expect the feds to petition a judge to keep holding him a while longer because of more evidence that they found at his apartment. All right, you're watching Fox 9 All Day. We're going to take a quick break and come back with more here in just a moment. Welcome back to Fox 9 All Day, 42 minutes after the hour here. Look, we've been talking a lot about sports here today. We've got the new basketball coach in Coach Medved over at the University of Minnesota. We've been talking about the Twins opener that comes up on Thursday, where we have our Jim Rich, who's already on the road heading down to St. Louis for that. I want us to switch here and talk about football for a moment, because this is really exciting. Not necessarily professional football, although the Vikings are involved with this, but high school girls flag football. And I know through my own family experience that this is big in catching on really fast. The Vikings have announced a new partnership now with more than 50 schools to get involved in this. And I want to bring in Joe Rush. He's the Vikings Youth Flag Football Director. Joe, thanks so much for being a part of this and joining us today. This is really exciting what the Vikings are announcing here today, because we have 51 Minnesota schools that are going to launch a brand new high school girls flag football league. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, I know. First and foremost, thank you for having me. We're really excited to talk more about this girls flag league, and certainly want to appreciate all of the participating schools that have, believed in this vision and movement and ultimately opted into the league for this year. And as we look back, it feels like it's all happened all at once, but ultimately it's also been a long time coming too. So we've been seeding opportunities at the youth and middle school levels for a number of years, and ultimately ran a 4-team high school pilot league last year, which really parlayed itself into incredible growth for this spring season, as you mentioned, having over 50 schools participate. So something we're super excited about, and like to would like to continue to keep growing this year over year as well.
So Joe, 14 teams that you started with in 2024. What was part of the explosion here? Was it the students talking to their fellow students? Was it the fathers and the coaches talking to other coaches in their districts? To go from 14 teams to all of a sudden 50 schools is remarkable.
Yeah, excuse me, I potentially may have misspoke too. It was 4 teams last year, so even additional incredible growth from 4 to 51 is truly outstanding. And ultimately the reason why is probably multi-pronged, right? I think it's taken a little bit of time to get the education and awareness that this is an opportunity, and then ultimately we're just finding that schools have a portion of their student body that they never realized wanted to come out for team sports. It's really interesting national data that we're seeing. About 50% of girls that are signing up for girls flag football are not previously included or participating in other high school athletics. So it's really tapping into a different segment of the student body that traditionally maybe has not been involved in athletics before. Certainly we're seeing a lot of passion from the tackle side. We have a lot of head coaches that are spearheading this effort on the girls side, but certainly there's organic interest, and the demand is there from the girls and the student body that are advocating for it with their athletic leadership as well.
Joe, I think you hit on a really important insight there. Across the border over in Wisconsin, my brother-in-law has been coaching a girls flag football team there with the support of the Green Bay Packers, because all of the NFL teams are getting involved in this right now. And they started out with just a couple of teams last year, and this year he's been able, as a coach now for these flag football teams, they actually have a conference in the Fox River Valley now with 6 teams that are going to be competing against each other, and other teams across the state as well. And his insight is that this is the girls who are being exposed to this now have never been able to play football before, and they're really excited about this opportunity to participate in football of some kind and do the things that they've only been able to watch on television. And the support among the parents, among the girls involved, has just been explosive from his point of view.
Really been an empowering experience. We're finding a lot of girls that find a community, a belonging, and certainly there are the physical health and wellness benefits of playing team sports that we're all familiar with, but the social emotional piece of this too, like I said, the character building, the sense of belonging and community, this has been something we're finding a lot of girls are gravitating towards, and they can find an identity as an athlete, as a community member, as a student athlete. It's really been something they can take ownership of, and they're finding a lot of joy in having something of their own in that football landscape, for sure.
Yeah, Joe, for those, and look, I know we've got some stay-at-home parents who are working from home, who are watching this broadcast on in the background. If they have daughters who are in high school who may be interested in this, what should they do? Who should they talk to?
It's a fantastic question. I'd say we do have a page on Vikings.com, so I would encourage everybody to visit Vikings.com/girlsflag, where we do have more just interesting data, metrics, media, and content to consume to learn more about it. And then ultimately we have a response field in there too, where you can reach out to us and request either more information, tell us what school district that you attend, and then ultimately we can collaborate and work together on seeing what it takes to bring this to athletic leadership or district leadership, to remove the barriers that may exist in select communities, to really open up this opportunity for all and make it equitable, accessible, and sustainable.
Now, Joe, I understand that this is a huge push from the National Football League, and they are behind this 1,000%, encouraging the local NFL teams to help market this effort. For a team that's wanting to start up, are there some financial grants from the Minnesota Vikings that can help them perhaps pay for footballs, pay for equipment, give them some logistical support in getting a team going?
Absolutely, yeah, and certainly, the monetary support we're finding is removing a lot of barriers for schools, but there are also unique challenges with each individual school and district. So ultimately, we're meeting everybody with where they're at, and encouraging them to communicate with us what are the barriers to entry and accessibility. Sometimes it's non-monetary, right? Sometimes it's finding a coach that can administer the team, the sport, and do some education pieces. So certainly with the monetary financial piece that the Vikings are able to put towards this, that's a big benefit. But even sourcing jerseys and equipment ordering, hosting coaching clinics, recruiting officials, those are all things that we're providing resources and opportunity to help support, and are really eager to bring more schools aboard.
I tell you what, I just love this concept. I know in my own family over in Wisconsin, they are just loving this and embracing it 1,000%. Again, give us the website. It's Vikings.com, right, where they can learn more about this to sign up?
Yeah, Vikings.com/girlsflag will have a whole, it'll have a participating list of our high school teams. But in addition, I want to remind everybody too that we have a 7-team collegiate league coming this spring as well, which I really find is a fun dynamic because it can be cross-promotive, where these local colleges are able to recruit local pools of high school athletes, and high school athletes in turn can see themselves, playing for these local institutions that exist here locally. But yes, Vikings.com/girlsflag, all the information you'd ever want, as well as that kind of response form you can fill out. We'll get back to you with more information.
Yeah, Joe, it just keeps growing and growing and growing. Joe Rush, he's the Vikings youth and flag football coordinator there for the Minnesota Vikings. We thank you so much for joining us here. We deeply appreciate it, Joe.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, you bet. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back with a little bit more right after this. Back to Fox 9 all day. We're quickly approaching the top of the hour here already. This has been a fun 2-hour ride. My name is Tim Blotz, and I've been filling in for Amy Hocker today, and I think the rest of the week too, as she's enjoying some well-deserved time off. Ryan Ravelin joins us now from the control room, our executive producer. You got to talk about this little story that we saw pop up today. We got passengers on a flight from Paris to Newark, New Jersey, say that there was a dog on this flight. Okay, we've all seen it, right? That we get onto a plane and somebody's got their little dog packed into a little animal carrier. This one spent the entire 8 hours barking across the Atlantic.
Yeah.
Wow.
And passengers say it was relentless. It just kept going. There were some efforts to move the dog around a little bit, but just a non-stop bark. And it had to be, I mean, since it was in the cabin, it had to be a smaller dog, right? So kind of a higher pitched bark. What do you think about that, Tim? How would you feel?
I don't fly that often, right? Maybe once, twice a year. And there have been dogs on the flights that I've been on, and they've been fabulous. You wouldn't even know that they were flying, right? They're just well behaved and well attended to by their owners, and in little animal carriers. You would never know that they were on the flight. But look, there's nothing more annoying than a yipping dog, and for 8 hours.
It's worse than like a crying baby, right? Too.
Almost.
Yeah.
Almost. I mean, and look, I'm going to lay it out. I'm not a dog owner. I don't have a dog, so I don't have a dog in this fight, so to speak. But we've all had. A good number of us are parents, and you're a brand new father yourself. Kids cry,
They do.
And you get on a plane with an infant and the air pressure and everything else, and I get it, I understand it, and my heart breaks for not just the parent, but for the child that's experiencing the discomfort in an airplane. So I have a lot of empathy towards children, but pets sometimes it's like, could you just have boarded the pet or left it with a family member?
Right.
Oh my goodness.
My advice to flyers would be to invest in a nice pair. The noise canceling headphone technology is so great now and you don't have to spend a ton of money on it. I mean, you can, but you can get a decent set of noise canceling headphones for relatively reasonable cost.
And those cheap little earpieces that they give you out when you board the plane, no, those don't cut it.
No, those aren't going to do it. You're going to need some noise canceling, so that would help, I think. But still.
All right. Another one of the talkers out there today is the Twins, because according to The Athletic, the poll ads, they're seeking at least $1.7 billion for the Twins. Now, we all know that they are exploring a sale of the Twins. They announced that last fall, and they've got more than $425 million in debt, and that's one of the numbers that came out today.
Yeah, that's a lot in debt. And then the $1.75 billion that they're asking for, so we can compare that to the Baltimore Orioles recently sold for $1.7. So I think that's fairly comparable, and that might be a number. Now, there was a report in that article that said there was one group that was interested in buying the team for $1.5 billion, and that was kind of a non-starter for the Twins. So going to be very interesting how this process plays out. One kind of wrinkle in this is it sounds like Joe Polat, according to this article in The Athletic, would ideally like to stay in control of the team in some capacity. I think fans would cringe at that just because they've seen the lack of spending. But now, if you can believe this article, we know now kind of why there's a lack of spending if they're $425 million in debt.
And apparently that all started during the pandemic.
Yeah, they said kind of a combination of the pandemic. They said the article cited the murder of George Floyd. I imagine what they're going with is attendance numbers during that time. And we all know the TV contracts with the Bally's, formerly Bally's sports network, the problems that they've had there, so that revenue has dried up as well. So we'll see how this plays out here.
All right, and we have to talk while we're on a sports theme here.
I gotta cut us. We're out of time, Tim.
It's time.
We're out of time.
My goodness, this went fast. I can't believe where this 2 hours went. Ryan, thanks for having me on board here today.
This was
for
fun.
all of you streaming us at home, thank you for allowing us into your homes this afternoon, your work offices, wherever you're at. You're watching Fox 9 all day. We'll have more after this.